I wanted to go over, just when you thought it was safe to go outside, they got something new here. And Volvo is always coming up with new products. So this is a DPI Transom Assembly. So this is the new replacement for the diesel engine. It's still a Sterndrive, and it's still a mechanical Sterndrive driven by the engine. It's not driven by a plasma inverter or anything like that yet. But what we have is we now have this combined unit that has to mount inside the transom assembly, because what they've done is they've made the drive hydraulic shifting. So what they have is clutch packs in the drive now. So the SCM now is going to create AC current, which is going to drive an AC motor instead of a DC motor. And that is going to allow this to run back and forth with alternating current. You can reverse the polarity, which is going to change the direction of hydraulic fluid for the steering pistons. And you also have your hydraulic trim pistons, which are tucked underneath there. So you can see the two hydraulic trim pistons and the steering pistons. Still the rubber boots like DPH. Big change is in the bonding wires. It's critical that these go on, and they are bonding everything. They're bonding these hoses. They're bonding everything to the transom assembly. It's very, very important that everything gets bonded in this. So there's a wiring diagram for that. Every single end of the piston has a bonding wire, right? And that has to also be bonded as well. So that's a major change in the way that this drive is being bonded, is more bonding wires and just something else to take apart and make sure you get it right when you put it back together. Cool bellows. They've designed a little pullover bellow so you can actually have tabs to pull on. You're not fighting to get them on there as easy. They're still a standard rubber bellows. And now what I wanted to do was to introduce the replacement in the DPI Sterndrive. So we're going to look at this next. So this Sterndrive now has a totally new look to it. The inside of it is totally different. So what we have now is we have a hydraulic clutch, upper and lower clutch packs instead of the cone clutch. You still have the upper and lower gears, but you're going to have the cone, you're going to have clutch discs in here. Okay, on the starboard side of the drive, you can actually see where the ID tag is underneath that cover. And what we have is we have the fill, or you can fill it from the bottom. And we also have this large harness that comes off the drive assembly and has 3 waterproof connections. So this is going to go through the transom assembly with 2 O-rings on it, and that holds it in place. So it's virtually watertight going through the transom assembly. The 3 connections that are going to be inside the boat, okay, are going to be for the shift solenoids, they're going to be for the steering module, and they're going to be for drive loop temperature and a drive loop monitoring that's checking the conductivity of the gear lube as well. So we've got a whole bunch going on inside this new DPI drive. There's this back cover that you'll see that looks like a kind of something out of Alien, and it's really not, but if I would pull this cover off, then you would be able to see that there's an oil filter. So right here, it kind of looks like the back side of an oil filter's here. So there's an oil filter in here, and then you have the drive loop monitor system on the other side of harness. And then you have your harness plugs that are going to go in for the upper and the lower solenoids to shift the actual drive. So there now is a new sensor harness coming off here, which is actually for the steering. It's a double Hall effect sensor that's underneath here that's actually sensing the rotation of the gimbal ring. And I'll spin the drive around so you can see the other side as well on the harnesses. We have electrical connections coming in, and we have this cover that covers everything up. The oil filter needs to be changed, if I remember right, every 2 years, 200-hour service interval, something like that. And with the oil filter, when you order it from Volvo, it comes with this O-ring that's for this cover, and that O-ring needs to be changed for this cover every time. Composite housing. So this is not going to be corroded. Well, you have those, you have stainless steel screws going into the aluminum housing, and then you have this gasket which has the O-ring impregnated, I believe. I haven't even taken this off, that's how new it is to me. So I just wanted to go over what's really very, very different versus what DPH was. You still have hydraulic steering, but that's now controlled through a joystick and an electronic helm, so you no longer have just a hydraulic helm drive. It's all electronic controlled. So steering's electronic controlled, shifting's electronic controlled, no more shift actuator, it's all hydraulic clutches. The reason they went with the hydraulic clutches for quiet. When you shift the drive with a regular cone clutch, when you shift that drive, that cone rotates up into a drive gear that's rotating in the opposite direction, and it really slams the drive into gear, so you really get this bang sound going through the boat. If you're in a joystick sterndrive and you're moving the joystick around just to try to kick the boat around or something, it's bang, bang, bang. It's very loud. So people didn't like that too much. So the engineers went back and they designed this drive. Now it's going to be super quiet. I mean, from what I've heard, some of the complaints are you don't hear it shift to go into drive, and now the boat's in gear and it starts moving, and people just aren't used to that. The Sterndrive isn't clunky anymore. It's just really, really quiet. And there's actually a steering sensor here down in the front of the drive.